here a broken trolley wheel. Now this trolley is shown on the side. I'll show you how to remove the wheel. For this particular model, look at the pattern of this wheel, broken trolley wheel. You have to push down the button as look for the quarter pin. If the quarter pin, you can feel the quarter pin loosening and find a suitable quarter pin inside. Okay, it's removed. Now when you see the wheel is broken around here, we're going to reinforce it. First, you get yourself a disposable container about the same diameter, so make sure you get the right one. This wheel is measured to be just over 15.5 centimeter. It could have been 16 centimeter because there's some parallax error from the camera point of view. Could have been as high as 16 centimeters. Diameter of this rim is slightly under 12 centimeters. This measurement here, the diameter of the rim itself, the inner rim itself, is about 11.5 centimeters. This type of information, right, you can actually design a new wheel if you can have it. Otherwise, just adapt something to reinforce the broken portion. We have got something that roughly fit here. We have the boulder sit on it, so probably reinforce the broken area. Very roughly, where are the spokes? Because these areas we will remove them so that we can fit them inside somehow. Very roughly mark this out. Marked out the location. Reinforce a little bit more. This is the outer rim area that we want to replace. The rest you can actually do some geometrical shaping to find out where you want to cut off an area for reinforcement. So this is a very rough cut. You very roughly mark out the outline as best as you can. The part that you want to reinforce, part of the wheel spokes that is broken, so that you can strengthen it. A disposable container. Mark out the outline. Later on, you can take out a heated knife or cut out the outline and try to slot it into this wheel spoke. Find a well ventilated place. Make sure it's well ventilated because there's some fumes coming out. I've adapted a soldering iron with a cutting blade. This is the soldering iron that I've adapted with a cutting blade. This particular soldering iron is good enough. It's a cutting knife, and I use it to make it easier to cut through plastic. I'll use a little bit of synthetic grease to act as lubricant. Synthetic grease is the best ones for this purpose. Follow the outline that you have sort of like marked out earlier. It can be more or less. Heat will weaken the material. The knife is going. Okay. Then slowly work your way through the material. For the cutting, to watch out for certain places when you do cutting. Otherwise, you may end up with some catastrophic failure. If you do it really slowly, let the heat travel through the soldering iron. Sometimes switch it off if it thinks too hot. This is the first stage. And we are back to the fitting stage. So I think that it's important to keep the epicenter disposable container and use that as a reference point. We'll mark the location where we'll get into contact with this container. You switch on the cutting knife. For me, I measure the power going into it is about 30 watts. When the temperature is high enough, it will get very hot. Usually we call that the smoking temperature. Cut it down to maybe about 15 watts. So just regulate it so that you don't get too much fumes. Okay, so now some of the fumes are coming out. You may be able to see it, alright. In this video, you may not be, alright, but the fumes are there. And I'm going to cut the power down to about 15 watts. The heat generator. If 15 is still too smoky, alright, cut it down to about 7 watts, which is very cool down. Really switch it off. You can actually start by working through the spokes. Literally find out where the spokes are. Cut slots. Remember, you're melting your way, alright, through the material. Where you want them to go in. Two places where we needed this. Here, and here. The rest has we just leave them alone. Let's take a look at the slots. Okay, there's the V-shaped slots. See the V-shaped slots that we cut. You can do a better job if you have a temperature controlled soldering iron. Okay, while you are doing the fitting, so you might just have to cut little bits out of it. Just cut a little bit at a time. For my case is that I might cut about 0.5 millimeter off, shave it off. Later under pressure, we'll show. So see how this fitting goes in. Now this will be under. So, but anyway, you need to. If you lost the pattern, just make it up again, draw it back again, so that you can use it to trim away a little bit of the. Okay, now let's take a look at our fitting. If we take our reference starting angle from one end, and then we can start fitting the spoke. However, because the diameter of the container is slightly larger than that of the inner spoke of the wheel, maybe by a couple of millimeters. There will be a bit of tension and maybe a bit of adjustments along the way. I'll make some adjustments for the spokes. Mark them out, location, cumulative errors that can result in that, and nicked off right from the back over here, nicked off the extra plastic. Right, from the back, nick off this extra plastic. Okay, after fitting the reinforcement rim, you mark out the location where you use cable ties, alright, to thread through this reinforcement rim, and of course later on cut a hole through them. Mark the location out best as you can. Make sure that it is you avoid any so-called major perspective error, etc. Now we're almost there. Again, you literally cut out the rectangular slots. Rectangular slots are not difficult to cut, alright, with this type of heated knife, but it just takes time. The material is weakened by the heat. We are on the level of craft work. Little while later, the fitting is almost done. You will never be able to get the container exactly the correct diameter. If it's slightly larger, that's good. If it's slightly smaller, you just adapt accordingly. Why is it that I want to leave some of these plastics behind is that I will use melt glue to reinforce the rim. Hopefully this wheel lasts a bit long. So the idea was to fill in all this area inside here with melt glue. Then of course later on I'll fill all this area here with melt glue as well. Starting point will be over here. So before I fill it in with melt glue, I want to preheat this area to at least about 80 degrees centigrade. Then use a hair dryer to do the preheating. Just to let you know about the initial temperature. It's about 29. I will go and use a hair dryer to heat it up to about 80. And fill this up with melt glue. Side, but it's been preheated. Fill it with melt glue and thermal frame on. Now sometimes you may not get everything correct, but the glue is still soft, alright. Okay, some places you may not have enough melt glue, and so you may have to add them on at the end after the main body has solidified. But just remember that this is not as crucial, alright, as the initial stage. Let's try to get them in. Monitor the temperature of the area. Okay, some places can be very hot, up to 60 degrees centigrade. The rim is almost done. Last part is to reinforce all the using cable ties. till it's tight. We video this part here, or I put the wheel back inside.